Well, the first time I went and seen John Hartford in concert, I was up there in the stands waiting for him. Earl Scruggs' review was on after him. John come walking out into the stage area, carrying in a small amplifier, a folding chair, and had his guitar tucked underneath his arm. And he set it down and he started setting up, and I said, by golly, geez, that looks like that guy from Muskegon. This was like a good 10 years later, maybe 12 years later. And some people who didn't know who John was in the audience was making fun of him about carrying the chair, down there and setting it up. I was disappointed he didn't have long hair, but he had a cut. But once John started doing his concert, those people who were saying things about this guy carrying a chair and a little amp out changed their whole minds, and they become John Hartford fans. But there's a tiny owl feather on the mantle over there, by the ladle next to the cradle. My darling, she put it there. She says it's from that scary bird perched out there to scare the little hen that pets her every night. Oh, the little cabin there's so green. It's the greenest little cabin that I have ever seen. And my darling waits there for me with a little tambourine, rapping out the rhythm of the rain. And now I can't go back 'cause I never left that little cabin home. The wrap around the porch and the dog trot and the well of granite stone. Oh, a big wet dog all flopper down at the end of a big old bone. Well, it rapping like a locomotive on an old freight train. Oh, the little cabin there's so green. The greenest little cabin that I have ever seen. And my darling waits there for me with her little tambourine, rapping out the rhythm of the rain. My brother built a set of speakers, big set of speakers with super woofers or whatever, and them big bassy sound ones, and we'd play boogie on there, and when John would get down to the you could practically feel the spit coming through the speakers. Wait, babe, you want a boogie? A boogie, woogie, woogie with me. Hey, babe, you want a boogie? Oh, that's some pretty crazy stuff, And John, he was up to that kind of crazy stuff. He could do so many crazy things so good. It was just like totally unbelievable. The great crazy things he could do. One of the things I used to really admire about John was that he would put songs out there on albums that were just like kind of bizarre or something, But he'd had the guts to do it anyway. And you listen to him a few times and, hey, them songs are doggone good, you know what? Well, my first encounter with John Hartford was when he was John Hartford. I was staying at a campground with my parents in Muskegon, Michigan, on Lake Michigan. And this group of people, this guy with a bunch of girls came over. His name was John. I was about 13 years old. He gave a little concert that night around the smoke ring, around the fire ring. played songs I never heard of before. The one girl who was closest to him talked him into playing Lemon Tree, which he didn't seem to want to play too bad. The next day I asked about him, and I asked the girl if he was here, and she said that he had taken off the night before. He did not stay at the campground, but he had gone up to Frankport, Michigan to see his uncle, and he would be back later, and they would go back down to the ferry that took him back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Then they said they were going back down to Chicago. I never realized that this was John Hartford until years later when I found out that talking with him, that he had an uncle who lived in Frankfort, Michigan. Where does an old time riverman go after he's passed away? Does his soul still keep a watch on the deep throughout the long river day? Does he then come back as a channel cat or the wasp that light on the wind? Birds that fly through the summer sky, fish swimming under the keel. Where does an old time pilot go after he stood his last watch? Does he still stand near to the one who steers, saying, hold her on that notch? There's a gentle sneeze in the river breeze, saying, son, go in to bed. And they light their pipes, go off into the night. Or is that just those fireflies instead? Where does an old-time engineer go after he's cooled her down? Up over the hills to never come back from the quiet side of town. Does his soul live on in the engine's song as a striker checks the gear? Or is he still afloat in an old steamboat after he's gone from here? There, and John always inspired me a lot with his music.